Hello and welcome to Opel GT Power. In this episode, we're going to be adding air conditioner to our car just in time for winter using this. It's about 50 pounds and it is the original equipment for an Opel GT air conditioner from the dealership for 1972. And we're going to be putting this into this somehow. Done. This here is the GM dealer installed AC system for a Opel GT. It's got a lot of components, and this was all installed at your dealer if you asked for this option when you bought your Opel GT new after probably 1970. There was also, on the earlier GTs, there was also another option that I have installed in this car, and that's the ARA AC. And we will go into some differences between the two units as we dive into this. So this here is the evaporator and blower assembly. We will be installing that pretty shortly, and I'll go into more detail on that. This is the big GM A6 compressor that was put on this unit. This here is the console. I have it upside down, but you'll be able to see more about it later. And this is the housing that goes around the evaporator unit behind the seats. To get started, we will be looking at these brackets, getting them cleaned up and painted, and start to install them on the car probably. We got the parts all painted up, and I got a hold of this wonderful service manual for the Opel GT air conditioner. And so now we know how this monstrosity goes together. So it looks like the first step, we're going to take out the alternator bracket and kind of clean up this area in the engine bay here and get us some room to work. we gotta get the pulley off to put the new pulley on. So I took off my fan, did that with a stubby wrench, inside of the hub. That way I don't have to mess with taking my radiator out. And the trick I'm going to use to take the pulley off is to put some hose or some rope and coil it up inside the combustion chamber while the #1 piston is on its power stroke. So I have my distributor is 180 degrees out because it's from another model. So this is where it normally would be pointing, is right here where my finger is for #1. So this is my #1 right here. So I have it just past #1 at the moment on the power stroke. So I'm going to slip this hose in here and coil it up inside the combustion chamber. And now take my socket wrench. I should be able to loosen this pulley bolts once the piston goes back up and clamps down on this hose. There we go. Now that's loose. Out, and there is the old pulley. Turn it until we find the woodruff key. There we go. Now put the bolt back in. And we'll tighten it up now. As you can see, the engine turned. So now we're going to take this hose back out. We did not tighten the pulley as much as we needed to. So I'm going to have to turn the engine all the way around 360 degrees to get #1 before top dead center, unless I want to take another spark plug out, which I don't. So I'm going to do that. Try to hold my camera still right here. And I'm about to bar the engine over. Yeah, see, and you can see that piston's going up, and since the rotor is pointed towards that spark plug, that means that we are on the power stroke and there will be no valves coming up. So I'm going to stick this hose in here. And now all I have to do is tighten. So I just hit resistance. Now I'm tightening the pulley without turning the engine. I'm going to finish that up, and then we can put a mark on the pulley and all that good stuff. Now that I tightened the pulley all the way, all I have to do is put the wrench in reverse, put it back on there, and turn the other direction. And if I got the bolt tight enough, it won't unscrew and it will turn the engine instead. And it did. So now I can pull my rope out. Alright, so I came across the first roadblock when I was trying to put the compressor right here on the car where the bracketry is. Unfortunately, it hits on right here where the coil mounts, and so I reached out to some people on the Opel USA Opel page, and somebody posted a picture that showed the entire top of this brake rod from here to here, this brake rod support area rather, to be cut out. So that's what we're about to do with the angle grinder. I don't know if there's quite enough room here for the angle grinder to do its job there, but we'll give it a go. so I got some weather stripping on here. I need to touch up this corner here. But I'm going to take this all off again in a little bit and repaint the bare metal areas. Just getting everything kind of test fitted right now still, because I'm going to definitely scratch this all up when I start putting the compressor in. So we'll come back to that later. So, been off camera for a while working with routing because my kit didn't come with the required spacer or the required cooling fan to clear the radiator and all the belts. And you can see this belt is pretty crazy on this car. It just barely clears everything. So, down there is the alternator. It barely clears the alternator pulley. It barely clears the water pump pulley, and the fan just barely clears the idler pulley down there. So it is a very, very close fit on this thing. So we had to space the fan out, and you can see we have this temporary setup of 3 washers, 1 nut, and 1 bolt head. And so we're gonna measure what that thickness is and make a spacer out of that. Okay, so we got the cooling fan, water pump pulley, and our new spacer ready. This is machined out of some really high density plastic, and it's about 0.7 inches wide, and I'll have all the other dimensions show up in a drawing in the video here. But anyway, we're gonna get this on and get it put on the front of the engine. First off, I'd like to say this fan looks amazing in there. I love the gold and the black accents. So, it looks like I basically have the belt routing correct. A small mistake in my test fitting just a minute ago. So you actually keep this front part of the console in place, the original part of the console in place when you put this console in. Otherwise you'll just have a big white open area over there, and that's not what you want. So you can see the evaporator's installed. You can see where I drilled the holes for the hoses to go through, as well as the ground wire that mounts to the top of the evaporator housing. And now we can see the wiring going forward to the console. You can see where I mounted the connector. There was a hole existing on that bottom piece of the console there that I used. This particular console can actually use the automatic transmission or a manual transmission by the way it's designed, which is kind of neat. So you can kind of get a look here at how everything's put together. You can see here, there's one of the rear drain holes, and here's the other rear drain hole. And that's about it for the interior part so far. The condenser is in place. It's kind of hard to get a shot in there, but it is there. Here's where you can see the lower mount on the right side in here. can't see the one behind the battery, unfortunately. With the Opel GT Source brake booster, you can't get the condenser over as far as you need to. So this mount right here on the top is inaccessible. Now we're going to replace the dryer. You always want to put a new dryer in a car. Using the old one, it's already been soaked with water and everything, and it just won't work as well. So we're going to replace the dryer with this one here. I will put the part number on the screen here. I managed to find one that was the exact same length as the original, which is quite difficult actually, because this is a 12-inch long dryer. So we're going to put on the O-rings. You have to get these. You have to get the new green type O-rings that are compatible with R134. It's a good idea to get a little bit of PAG oil on them as well to lubricate them. So I'll put one on this one too if it'll stay still for me. So they fit nicely. Make sure they get pushed all the way down and they're not twisted. Then you can insert them into the dryer. Alright, so we have the condenser and the new dryer all installed and looking nice. I show you right down there the hole that we cut. It's kind of an oval shape for these hoses to go through, and there's not very much room for them to fit. I think I found a picture of the original, how the original is done, and I will post it right about now. So you can see that they cut a big triangle pretty much from here all the way down to where the these wires go through the body there. You can't really see that well. Let's see now. There you go. So you can see where those wires are running through. There's kind of a triangular hole there. So I think what the dealer did was cut out this whole area under the hood brace, or the hood prop rod brace, all the way to about where my hole ends for those lines to go through. But I was able to get them through just by taking a step bit and moving kind of side to side to make an oval shaped hole. But there it is installed. I have some heat shrink on the lines so they don't get any chafing from the metal hole that I created, since I don't have any grommet or anything. And everything's all mounted nicely and getting ready for my hoses to come in as the next step. I'll see y'all when the hoses come in. This will hopefully be the last time we see this inside part of the engine bay under the compressor. I had to remove it to fill it with some PAG oil, which we're about to do now. I've got my alternator ground. I thought ahead a little bit and noticed that you can't actually get down to the normal grounding bolts here with the compressor in place very easy. So I changed the ground and have it grounded to here now where I can actually access it. That's about all for down there at the moment. I gotta clean up some wiring, and then the compressor's going back in as soon as it gets oil in it. So here you can see my nicely new painted junkyard 1972 Buick LeSabre compressor, and we're about to insert 10 ounces of PAG 150 oil into the compressor. That is the type of oil that is most recommended for this old compressor, and this is being recorded after the fact, and it has worked quite well. You can see we got a little bit of leakage there, so watch out for that and tilt it slightly towards you when you fill it up, unlike what I did. Then be sure to tighten the
Alright, so let's see if we can get this compressor reinstalled and check and make sure everything that's under it is plugged in correctly and ready to go, because I don't want to take this back off again. So this thing weighs about 45-50 pounds, so it's kind of difficult to control. Since I'm using old heat exchangers, condenser and evaporator, I need to flush them out. So I got this AC flush kit from AutoZone. It's a loaner tool, so I didn't have to pay for it. Well, at least once I take it back, I won't have to pay for it. And I've got a hose hooked up to the outlet on my condenser, and I'm about to flush through that after I open the valve on the tool. Alright, so we took off the evaporator. Sitting right here now. You can't flush through an evaporator, so it has to come off. And also it needs to come off to replace the O-rings on it as well. So, about to start flushing this unit now. Got all new O-rings put on now, and all the lines are cleaned out. So just got to reassemble now, and an O-ring on this one here. There we go. So now we just got to put the evaporator, what do you call this? The expansion valve. Now we just got to put the expansion valve back on, and this part will be good to go. Everything's all hooked up now. I've got the system getting vacuumed out right now, getting all the moisture and all that good stuff out of it, and then we're going to make sure it can hold vacuum after that. So, got the battery installed down there. See, I went for a very small Motorsport battery. If I can remember what the number is, I'll post it on the screen right now. It's actually like a motorcycle battery. I got it at a store called Batteries and Bulbs. I just picked a random one. This one has about 180 cold cranking amps, and I found that that's plenty for this car. It's a third of what they came with, but it still starts the car just fine, and you can crank it quite a bit before it runs out of juice. I have the same thing on this car too. On my when I drive more often. I have a one that's got a little bit more cold cranking amps, but it also wasn't $60, so not quite as good of a deal. We made a panel to go over the back here to distribute some weight. The original kit did have this, but mine didn't come with it. I still need to cover it with some carpet, and it'll be just like the original. The biggest thing is we got the hose routing done. Sorry for all this stuff in the way, but there's the hoses going down, going into there. Under the car, here's how everything looks. There's the hoses meeting each other, going to their first mount. There's the second mount. Then it goes off to the right a little bit, goes through the third mount, meets up with the evaporator right to there. This here is the vacuum switch for the GM AC kit. Its job is to turn the compressor clutch on and off due to varying vacuum signals from the engine. Since it is connected to the ported manifold vacuum, or the port on the carburetor, it gets zero vacuum at idle and zero vacuum at wide open throttle. Therefore, the compressor clutch turns off at idle and at wide open throttle. This allows the car to have a smooth idle and still have full power advantage at wide open throttle. So you won't lose any horsepower to do this compressor at wide open throttle, which is nice. I'll demonstrate how it works. I have mine wired up inside here. You can't see it because everything's in the way in there. From the dealer, they put these on the driver's side transmission tunnel behind the dash area. So I have mine connected here, and I'm going to suck into this hose, and you'll see the compressor click on and off. So let's pretend we're at idle right now. So there's zero vacuum, so nothing's happening. Now I'm going to go to partial throttle. And you can see when I let off of partial throttle and went back to idle, it went back to off. So that's on with vacuum, and now it's off. And this is how it would be at wide open throttle as well. All right, I got my refrigerant can hooked up. And let's give this a go. Make sure both of these are open. Make sure both of these are closed. let's start up the car. So, you have to start up the car so the compressor can generate vacuum to suck in the refrigerant. That's what I'm doing right now. Currently all the hoses are closed, and I'm now slowly turning on the low pressure side. That's the only side you will deal with while you're adding refrigerant. So, at the moment refrigerant is now going into the system. You can see that the gauge rose. You don't want to open this immediately because it can cause damage by adding liquid into the compressor. Now it's a little bit farther into the first can. The can's about empty, so I'm shaking it to get the rest of it out. Give it a few revs while I shake it to help encourage the last bit to go through. Now I'm closing the low pressure side. And now I'll remove the can after I close the tap on it as well. There's usually just a little bit of pressure left in it after it warms back up. So, taking off the old can, putting on a new can, and now I'm opening the new can. Now I'm going to purge the line using a screwdriver just in case I got a little bit of air in there. Now I'm slowly opening the blue valve again, revving the engine as well to help encourage some more suction. And finally, we're done with the second can, and I'm closing the blue valve. Now, I will find out later that I need exactly one more can to fill this GT AC system. It needs 36 ounces. That's the case, but everything's all hooked up, working just fine. I took it for a test drive, had some nice cold air blowing on me. It works really, really well. Maybe even better than my unit in that car. That's a modern unit. But that remains to be seen at the moment. So I'll start it up. You can see the little Motorsport battery does plenty good work. So let's turn on the fan, and then turn on the air conditioner. See, it only dropped my RPMs about 100. My other car drops 400 RPMs sometimes, depending on, like if I have my idle set at 1200, I usually drop to like 800. This one does not drop anywhere near as bad as that car. And it's blowing nice cold air already. Cool thing about this unit is when you full throttle, it turns the air conditioner off until you release the throttle because of the vacuum switch. But yeah, I really like this air conditioner too. The only thing is when you're shifting, you will smash your hand if you shift like you normally do. You have to shift like this with this tower here. It's a real pain in the ass. But not anything. I tried to adjust the shift linkage on the transmission and everything. There's nothing you can do about it. That's just how you're gonna have to shift from now on with this unit. Got my CB hooked back up. Yep, it looks like my evaporator is draining, so that's good. So there's the tensioner pulley. Looks like it's a little cocked to the side. I'll have to investigate that a little bit. The bracket might be slightly bent. Be taking a look at that, but it's not bad at all. It's not hot or anything, so it seems to be doing its job fine. The fan is clearing. Everything's clearing. Pretty happy with it so far.